now I'm here to beat you with full force. Mess up your facial features. Hasta la vista, I'm selling all y'all little Caesars. All y'all stuff your face with is pizza. Pizza crack like a hard.
Cowabunga, dudes. What's going on, everybody? You are listening once again to Pixel Project Radio. My name is Rick Firestone, the hero in the half shell, and I'm joined today by two very special guests. Guest number one, he is a shell of a guy. We're here with Eric Guess from the Unlockables podcast.
What is up, Rick? Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I got to say that I just got back from the pizza store, and I'm, ready for a radical podcast. And then, later tonight I might settle down with some turtle soup. Don't know. We'll see how that goes.
And guest number two is Turtletastic, and that's a fact, Jack. We've got Michelangelo Tabletop, as he's known in this call. Mikey Tabletop from the Big Drink Energy podcast / Indie Smash League.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. I originally wanted my name to be Mikey, in parentheses, the orange turtle, not tabletop, but that was too long for the call to put in.
And as you might have guessed by all of the questionable puns and pandering, we are talking today about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, specifically Turtles in Time, the smash hit retro RETREAUX game that came out in June of 2022. Just recently. Might be the most recent game that we've done on the show. I'm not entirely sure.
Quick correction. Do you mean Shredder's Revenge, or did I play the wrong game?
What did I say?
Turtles in Time.
Oh.
Yes. No, I do mean Shredder's Revenge. Thank you for that.
I had a mini panic attack. I was like, oh shit, I bought the wrong game.
Yes, Mikey, you mean you didn't procure a vintage SNES cart of Turtles in Time for $200 to $300?
No.
We have high expectations over here. No, we are talking about Shredder's Revenge. Came out just this year, 2022, or last year if you're listening to this in 23, or many years ago if civilization has fallen and podcasts are the only available form of entertainment in the future.
Or a game that is yet to come out if you're listening from the future with time travel in the past.
Oh my god.
Just bases
Clear
covered.
as mud.
Turtles in Time, baby. Turtles in Time.
Oh boy, here we go.
Clear as mud.
Pixel Project Radio exists in the past, present, and future. It is eternal.
So before we start, what are our histories with the Turtles? I wanted to go over that a little bit because this game pays a lot of homage to the series as a whole, particularly Turtles in Time as a game. The influence is quite clear there, but as the series as a whole, there are a lot of callbacks and little winks. Guests will go first, which is something that I did not need to retake and redo. So, Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about your histories with the Turtles?
Yeah, so pretty much the Turtles have been with me since I can remember. It's some of my earliest memories. I was born in 1991. I believe the original run of the cartoon was in the later part of the 80s. But I remember those were still being aired at the time, and I managed, and alongside a lot of the other quintessential 90s shows growing up, I grew up watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I also grew up watching, like your Power Rangers, your Transformers, your Street Sharks, Superhuman Samurai. So it was just part of like that rotation of shows that I was watching as a kid, the cartoons of our childhood. And then just is kind of natural once I got into playing video games and the Turtles were on the Super Nintendo. Well, that was a no-brainer. My parents had an easy Christmas gift for me. So my first Turtles video game was actually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, which was my introduction to fighting games. So that game, despite however that's viewed, has a really special place in my heart. And then another game that I have a lot of heavy nostalgia for is the aptly named, already mentioned, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. I played the ever-loving crap out of that game when I was a kid. It was probably the second most played game on the Super Nintendo right after Super Mario World. And one of my claims to fame that I really like to brag about is when I was just a wee young lad, me and my friend were able to beat it on the hardest difficulty. So we played the absolute crap out of that game. And ever since then, the Turtles have just kind of been in my peripheral. I haven't gone out of my way to follow them as I've gotten older, but they've always been there. And anytime there's been like a new movie or kind of cartoon show or anything like that, I'm like, wow, there's still this relevance for these characters that were developed, 30 plus years ago. So when I saw the trailer for Shredder's Revenge at probably E3 or one of the thousands of showcases we have now, it was in my mind. I was already going to buy it day one. There was no question. And now here we are, a couple months after release, talking about it on the podcast.
Wow, that is some high praise for the Turtles. We've got a super fan here. Now, my understanding is that Mikey, you're familiar with the history of the comic books going all the way back to the Genesis. So Eric and I are going to take 10 while you kind of just go over that whole spiel.
In my notes, I was trying to gauge how much of a deep dive do I want to go into the history of, like, not just the Turtles comic books, but comic books in general, to show how, like, the industry like had influence on what they were doing at the time. But we don't need that. But, like, yeah, obviously,
Hey,
like,
the floor is yours.
We're here for the full master thesis class of Turtles, Mikey. So
I'm not going to do the full master thesis class. I'm just going to give a quick rundown. So it was two guys. It started off as a joke. It was Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird. I think it was Peter Laird drew a picture of a turtle with, like, nunchucks and, like, a bandana, and thought combining, like, the agility of, like, a Bruce Lee kung fu film with the slow turtle was just funny. And then his partner was like, oh, I can do better than that. And they went back and forth until they came up with 4 Ninja Turtles. At the time, some of the biggest comic books were the Teen Titans, the X-Men starring mutants, and Daredevil, which starred ninjas. And they kind of was like, this is going to be a parody of everything that's popular right now, because they were part of, like, that indie alternative scene where they were, like, too cool for mainstream. So it was like they were lampooning everything. Like, the main bad guys of the turtle world, the Foot Clan, they're a direct parody of the Hand in Daredevil. Daredevil's trainer, like, his master was Stick. The Turtles, there's Splinter, the same ooze that gave Daredevil his blindness and his powers. Canonically, air quotations, is what gave the Turtles their mutation. After it hit him in the eyes, it just rolled down to the sewers, and now they're a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. So, like, the whole thing started off as just, like, two guys joking around, and then they didn't expect it to be this big thing, and then Turtle Mania hit. And I got caught up in Turtle Mania. So I also, like Eric, grew up watching the cartoons. I never actually played any of the video games until I got older. The very first Ninja Turtles game I played was at a barcade. It was the very first, like, Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet. And it was 4 of us. We each picked a turtle. And, like, within the span of, like, 2 drinks, we just sat there and beat the game. So, like, that was fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah. But I did continue with the shows. I kept up with the shows and kept up with the comic books a little bit. I haven't seen the most recent edition of the TV show that came out, like, 2 years ago, I think. But I've watched, like, most of all of the other TV shows leading up to that point. So I was, like, still invested. Like, I don't know, I'm, like, 25, still watching Ninja Turtle cartoons. I don't really give a shit. I was still invested at that point, you know?
So it's very clear that I asked the 2 right people to come onto this show. Like, I don't think I was going to find in my circle of friends, I wasn't going to find 2 bigger turtle maniacs than you 2, and that's good, because my history with the Turtles isn't quite as deep. It's not quite as prevalent. So I grew up. I was born at the end of '92, but it's funny. My hometown in itself was perpetually kind of like 2 years behind everything. But my growing up in my family, and even to this day, they're very much like 12 years behind everything. So I was watching cartoons from the 80s, like growing up. And even before that, like HR Puffin stuff was one, and like the Beatles cartoon, and the late 80s Turtles cartoon was a big one. This and Street Sharks were 2 of the biggest ones in my childhood, along with like Pokemon and stuff like that. But yeah, I was a huge fan of the Turtles back then. I kind of, like, once I stopped watching that kind of cartoon, I kind of fell off of them. I didn't really pursue them outside of that, and outside of the live action movies. I have a lot of good memories watching the VHS of TMNT 2, the live action one, as a kid. We had all 3 of them, but I like number 2 the most. I don't know why. But anyways, that's about where it begins and ends for me. I did play I want to say it was Turtles in Time, like as a kid with one of my childhood good friends. It wasn't something that we played often, but I know he had it, and we played it now and then. So, but we did play other beat 'em ups like Altered Beast, Double Dragon, things like that. So the beat 'em up genre is something that it was kind of formative, and that's exactly what they did with Shredder's Revenge. So let's talk a little bit about what this game is. So this came out just this year in 2022, June 16th, on PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. It did get a PS5 port on November 15th. How did you all play it? I played it on Switch.
I played it on the Nintendo Switch as well. I thought it was... when I first saw it, I'm like, this is a perfect Switch game, so that's where I bought it.
I know it's on sale for the Steam sale right now, but I also bought it on Switch because it seemed like the perfect Switch game. So I was willing to pay a couple extra bucks for it, to... Normally when I play the Switch, it's constantly in docked. I played the entirety of this game in handheld, which I don't think I've ever done for any other Switch game.
Same.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't really look into this before I bought it. At the time, I didn't have a Steam Deck, and at the time, I wasn't convinced. I had one reserved, but I remember thinking, that's a lot of money, which I did end up pulling that trigger. But you can hear all about that on a previous episode. But I bought it because I was like, oh, this is going to look great on the Switch OLED. And spoiler alert, it does. It looks incredible. But the biggest drawback to playing on Switch is there's no crossplay. So you can only play with other Switch users. Which is a bummer, and something that Mikey and I have run into trying to play Nick All-Stars Brawl a couple times.
So obnoxious. But I can't believe I didn't ask any of you this. We'll have it on Switch. We should have done co-op at some point.
That seems like it would have been a natural idea to do that, but yeah, we were just kind of like, oh, well, okay, we'll play it. We'll come back with our thoughts.
I just assumed everybody got it on better systems. I thought I was the only my computer can't run. I'm going to get it on Switch. I thought I was the only one.
I'm saying, we could always stream it to the Discord one of these days, honestly.
That would be super cool. Yeah, that would
be
super
a lot
cool.
of fun. Because this game, it's enjoyable to play it by yourself, but I know it would be so much better to play it with friends. At least one other person, maybe 2 or 3. And speaking of that, if you're playing on PlayStation, you can only play up to 4 people, local co-op. If you want to do more, you've got to play online. They cited hardware limitations for that. I'm not sure who has 3 friends that they can just get together in person anymore in 2022, but if that's you, that's something to think about. So this was developed by Tribute Games. I looked into some of the other stuff that they have developed and published. I'm not familiar with any of it. Are either of you?
No.
If we're looking at a couple of these things, it looks like Metal Slug Tactics is the only one that sticks out to me. That's a upcoming future release that I've kind of had my eye on. But other than that, I'm not familiar with anything else that they've done.
A lot of PC games, a couple of PS4, PS Vita games as well. But yeah, nothing that I'm super familiar with. Then it was published by a company called Dotemu. A little more familiar with them. They're going to have some more stuff that you may have heard of. Final Fantasy VII? Why is this saying 2012? Must have been one of the ports. I didn't look at this before. I just scanned it. But King of Fighters 2000, Blazing Star, Sengoku, Ys Chronicles 2. Just a lot of stuff that you're probably familiar with or have at least heard of. Final Fantasy, that's 8 remastered. Yeah, okay. So what ended up happening is Nickelodeon actually approached Dotemu, the company, about doing a game based on one of their franchises. After meeting up with Tribute Games, Tribute was a smaller Montreal-based company. They decided to do it on the Turtles as a sort of love letter to some of the games in the past, primarily Turtles in Time. The music was done by T. Lopes. Or T. Lopez. I actually don't know because it's not spelled with a Z, and I have not heard it pronounced. He's done some stuff with Sonic Mania, Sonic Origins, Metal Slug Tactics, and something called Banana Kong 2, which is, I've never heard of that, but that's awesome. Additional music in this, you might have heard of a couple of these. Ghostface Killah and Raekwon are 2.
What?
The singer
Let's
Mike
go.
Patton.
So I'm listening to one of the levels, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? Why does this go so hard? And I looked it up, and I'm like, what? They have Wu-Tang Clan on this? Like, how? What a get!
if I would have told you that in 2022, year of our Lord, we would be playing a Nickelodeon-backed video game with the soundtrack that featured the Wu-Tang Clan, would you have believed me?
No, not at all. Just like I listened to this soundtrack this morning at work. It's so good.
Mm.
Oh yeah, we'll get into the soundtrack and the sound design in a minute here. So as I said, this was heavily inspired by Turtles in Time from 1991, the arcade cabinet classic. And I think SNES port, but I'm not 100% on that. Probably. Or Sega. I don't know. Don't at me. I'm not interested. One thing that I do know is that they did not go the route that, like, for example, Shaq Fu did, or Turtles in Time Reshelled, which was a sort of 3D full makeover. And have either of you played or seen that game, the remaster?
I can't say that I have, although I've briefly remember the Shaq Fu one coming out, and there's briefly being a slight buzz around that before it went away to die again quietly.
If I remember correctly, I think Turtles in Time Reshelled, people were really excited for. It came out, and like it was a digital only game, and they didn't redo the sprites. They kind of like made it like quasi 3D. People did not like it. They were like, I'd rather just play the one from 20 years ago, if I remember correctly.
I mean, this is just my opinion. It looks like shit. It kind of looks to the original Turtles in Time what the like Nickelodeon reboot of the Turtles looked to the 80s cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Like very hyper modernized. And it's this whole trend recently not recently being like ever since the 2000s of newer graphics automatically being better, which is just not the case. And I think this is a game that does that in spades. It does the older style of presentation in a way that is incredibly effective and looks terrific. We could talk about that in just a minute, but first, let's talk about how the game actually plays, because there might be some folks here who haven't played Turtles in Time. So this is a beat 'em up, as I've said. How would the two of you describe a beat 'em up?
I pretty much call it a side-scrolling fighting game. You move from left to right, and you fight enemies as they appear on the stage and avoid hazards. And then once you complete that, you get to move on to the next screen. That's pretty much the way that beat-em-ups have been since the invention of video games. Even more modern takes on the beat-em-up, like this one, or the more recent, a couple years ago, or whenever it was, Streets of Rage 4. And this, in my opinion, this game, alongside with Streets of Rage 4, are really the only two modern examples of like a beat 'em up that's been able to kind of capture what that style of game was back in the early days. Because like Rick said, better graphics and newer graphics don't necessarily mean better. And I think beat 'em ups lend themselves to a very specific gameplay and graphical style. And I think that Streets of Rage 4 and Shredder's Revenge managed to capture that beautifully. So yeah, you're just advancing from left to right. You're fighting enemies and clearing stages. It's a very straightforward approach to a video game.
Anything to add, Mikey?
No, I was about to say I have nothing to add. That was a very good summarization of everything. I was also going to say side-scrolling punching game, and that's it. Just like you got it.
Yes. Side-scrolling punching game is a good way to describe it. You're kind of progressing across the 2D environment. Sometimes you'll be halted, and you have to defeat a certain number of enemies in an area, but largely you have free reign. It is horizontal. You're not going to be doing a ton of moving on the y-axis. I mean, you do, but it's not a 3D style of y-axis. You're kind of moving back and forth on the street instead of into the background, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everybody in this game has a kit, and the kit is largely going to be the same. Everybody's got a standard attack, a heavy attack, a dive attack, a jump attack, which is different than the dive attack, several throws, and special attacks. Everybody's going to have those. What is different, and this is kind of jumping ahead just a little bit, is that each of the characters are going to have different stats. That's not typical in most beat-em-ups. Most beat-em-ups, you just choose a character, and everybody kind of handles the same. In this, all of the playable characters have different stats. So, for example, Leonardo is the most well-rounded. He's got 2 stars on every stat. Donatello, for example, has a longer reach. He's got 3 stars for reach, but his power is only 1 star. and I don't remember what his speed is, but everybody is different in that way. They're going to play and handle a little differently, plus their specials are going to behave differently as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is a throwback to an accident from the first Ninja Turtles beat 'em up game, because in theory, the Turtles, they all have the same stats in the first game, but there's like a definitive tier list of Donatello is just straight up the best character to play as in the first one.
Yeah.
Because they'll have the same speed, but he's got the reach with the bow staff. He's just like, it's the easiest to get through the level with him. So I think they took that from the earlier games, but worked it in this time instead of it being an accident, and were able to tweak it so everyone's kind of balanced when playing through it, instead of just having one really good character and the rest are useless. Like, everybody has their ups and downs, and it kind of like balances out, which I liked.
I think it's kind of an homage too, because the first game I can remember doing that, and it's a game that I happened to play this year as well, was Streets of Rage 2 for the Genesis. Streets of Rage 2 did purposely have characters that had different stats on them. So like Axel and Blaze are the two that I remember play a little bit differently, and it kind of encourages like different play styles. And they even go so far as to actually have different movesets in that game. But for this one, yeah, it's very much like the stats are pretty much the different thing. Like, the attacks might look different because like the weapons are different, but they pretty much function the same exact way. So I think that was probably also too a little bit of homage to probably Streets of Rage 2, which is probably, I would say, alongside Turtles in Time, one of the definitive beat 'em up experiences in video game history.
Looking forward just a little bit, there are challenges in each stage as well, and that's going to sort of promote an exploration of your toolkit and an exploration of play styles. So some of the challenges are going to be things like don't get hit through the whole level, don't get hit by environmental hazards, which occur in certain levels. Defeat 5 enemies using forward throws, defeat 5 enemies by hitting them into a clothes rack if we're in a certain level. Don't use your special, things like that. And these aren't mandatory, but they will give you more points, which will help grow your characters a little more. And generally, I think they just make the game a little more fun. It was more enjoyable to try and nail these challenges than just blow through the level doing the same moves, button mashing over and over again. And that kind of leads to the last thing that we've alluded to before in terms of gameplay. This game can be a little tricky if you're playing by yourself. I played through this. I don't know about you two. I played through this on just the normal difficulty. But there were a couple levels that were a little challenging. And I think it was because I was playing alone. I mean, it's also a skill issue, but, you know, I think playing with friends is going to make this a little more enjoyable. I don't know if enemies spawn faster or in greater quantities if you're playing with other people, because I haven't tested that.
Nope, I have I played it solo. Just, I shouldn't have had. I'm sure I could find someone to play with me, but I didn't.
Yeah, I haven't tested that either, but I did find certain points where it was challenging a little bit playing solo. I played it on the normal difficulty as well. I would by no means call myself any kind of beat 'em up fighting game expert, because this is very much a game that you can just pick up and kind of button mash. I mean, that's pretty much the way I played it, and I had a fantastic time with it. There's a level, I'd say there's a very low floor but a very high ceiling, because there is an option where you can see like kind of all the different combos that the turtles can do, and there are like fighting game button combos in this game. I never learned or remembered how to do any of those, so most of the time I was just like attacking, or I did find myself struggling in some stages, because the way I like to play is I like to play a very jump heavy style of gameplay where I just kind of jump in the air and do diving attacks to initiate and then like go into a combo. And
the Mortal Kombat 2 special.
Dude, exactly. It's always about the diving kicks. That's what you got to go for.
It's funny because I played the exact opposite. My favorite was like ground attacks, and I just want to bash them and see how I want to get like my combo count really high. I want to see how many I could hit in a row before like the screen cleared.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can't not jump. I was jumping like literally 100% of the time. And yeah, it is a little bit difficult because in my brain, like I couldn't prioritize like which enemies like I wanted to go after and finish off first. So yeah, when you're playing a single turtle on the screen and you end up like getting surrounded, yeah, you got to figure out like which enemies to take out real quick before they attack and like take some of your life away. And yeah, I did struggle with that. And I think part of my problem with my playstyle was too is like the fact that I'm like jumping and like dive attacking all the time. I'm not always aware of like where the environmental hazards are. So I'm just jumping into like environmental hazards like barrels that explode, or like jumping down into like a knife that gets thrown at me, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that the skill ceiling is high. I don't know if I'm just being nitpicky. I don't think that I would give it that categorization. But it's definitely a game, if you button mash, you're gonna lose, I think, or at the very least have a hard time. It is important to make use of the mechanics. They give you all of the mechanics up front. I think before you start, you get like 21 different slides
Yep.
that shows you each move. So it'll show you your standard attack, your heavy attack, your dodge roll into a lunging attack, things like that. Making use of all of that is going to make your life a lot easier. I probably didn't use all of them equally. I did a lot of dodge roll and jumping, and then the attacks associated with those. I forgot about specials a lot until like there were a ton of enemies on the screen. I kind of forgot about them, which is nice, I guess, because my special meter was always full. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to play this, which is super cool, especially because each of the characters are a little different. And let's get into them. So right away, who are you maining? Who's your main in Shredder's Revenge?
Ooh.
This decision makes or breaks the friendship, boys.
Yeah, I know.
There's only one right answer.
I made it a point to play everyone. And that's mostly because I kept losing on this one level in particular. I go, fuck it, Leonardo's not working. And just like quit out and like pick a new turtle or rat or human. But I played them all for at least one level. And then I think at the end of the game, because I kept swapping back and forth, the characters I had the most playtime with was Leo, followed by Mikey, followed by Splinter, I think.
Turtles to the rescue!
Okay, all right. How about you, Eric?
So I had to go with, since the beginning of time, and I don't know why, Donatello's been my favorite turtle. I don't have a reason why. I was just drawn to him as a kid. I don't even particularly like the color purple. My favorite color is red. I tend to like swords as like my favorite type of weapon. But here I go liking this purple turtle with a stick. I don't even why. So I played the entirety of the first game through with Donatello because he was my favorite. I don't think he was like my favorite character to play as, though, because, well, yes, like you said, he did have that 3-star like reach stat. He was very, very slow, almost to the point where it was like uncomfortable to play as him at certain points where I felt like speed would have been a factor. So I kind of did the same thing that Mikey did my second playthrough. I was kind of like jumping around to different characters in different stages, and I ended up finishing my second playthrough with Leonardo because I felt like he's the most well-rounded. I would say he was like probably like the starter character that has the perfect mix of speed, of reach, of power. But I did end up liking Michelangelo a lot because he's really fast. And, I used to play a slower, tankier style of gameplay. And now I'm like, I favorite a faster style of gameplay. So yeah, it's probably like Donnie, then Leo, then Mikey.
He is really fast, Mikey is. I can't remember, is it his reach that's good or is it his strength that's good? I can't remember.
For Michelangelo, I think his strength is probably the lowest, right? Or maybe his reach is the lowest because he's got the shortest weapon. I'd probably assume it would be.
Well, not the shortest weapon, because out of the 4 turtles, out of everybody, my favorite to play as was Raphael.
Sup, fellas?
He's always been my favorite turtle. I remember watching one of the 80s cartoons. They in an episode they clowned on him for having a name that didn't rhyme with the rest of theirs, like the rest of theirs does. And like that combined with like him being a broody, edgy kind of turtle.
Bullying was cool, kids.
Yeah, no, I always like Raphael, and I think the Sai is just a very, very cool weapon.
Yeah.
But in addition, we kind of alluded to this. You can also play as Splinter, April O'Neil, and you can unlock
fellas.
Casey Jones, the kind of like Jason Voorhees looking dude.
Goongala. I was so excited Casey Jones was in this. That's because he's not a turtle. His catchphrase isn't cowabunga. Casey Jones yells Goongala. That's his thing.
What a fantastic catchphrase to strike terror and fear into the hearts of seasoned, trained ninjas that you are fighting.
You can play through an entire character. You can play through an entire run as just one character, but you can also switch your characters out at any time. The catch is that the more you play as one character, the more they level up. And as they level up, you're going to get more health, you're going to get higher special meter, things like that. So it does benefit you. Oh, and special moves too. It does benefit you to kind of play as one, but it doesn't penalize you too heavily, if that makes sense. I didn't really play that much of Casey or April, to be honest. So I'm not super familiar with them. I know April has a lot of sort of nods to Street Fighter, or just other fighting games. Like her walk is very similar to Cammy's from oh Jesus, Mikey,
Street
what's
Fighter 2.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2. Okay, I couldn't like I think of, for some reason, when I think of Cammy, I think of not Marvel versus Capcom. I think SNK versus Capcom.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
maybe.
yes.
Like one of those like barrage fighting games. That's just how I think of her for some reason. So I always forget if she's King of Fighters or Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
I did play
But
a bit
yes.
of April as well, and I think it's very cool that they had her as a playable character, because I remember specifically from Turtles in Time that you were not able to play as her. It was just pretty much the four main characters, and she was kind of like a, typical damsel in distress type of role character. So I'm really glad in this day and age that they like casted her as like this awesome like fucking character you can play and just whoop some ass with. I thought that was really, really cool.
You can also play as her in Nick All-Stars Brawl. I don't know.
Oh, that's cool.
I kept up with the meta for that for like a week.
Yeah.
But at the time, like towards the beginning, she was considered somewhere around the top tier.
Yeah, people really liked her when she first came out, and she had a fun move set of just like, because she's a news reporter, like one of her moves, she pushed like the camera on like the dolly and the wheels, and like she shoved that into you, or she would hit you with the microphone. So it was cool that she was in there. But don't buy Nick All-Stars Brawl for half the price. Buy this game instead, and you'll have more fun.
Yeah, we've probably got a Nick All-Stars Brawl episode somewhere in the pipeline.
As soon as crossplay comes out.
Nintendo doesn't like crossplay. They want you to stay within their ecosystem, so you give them all the money.
I tell you what, like if they didn't have so many good titles under their rights, I just don't know how they would stay afloat.
It's true.
Pokemon is a great example of that right now. Games are broken as hell.
We love you, Game Freak. No, really, make your game better.
There are 16 levels in this. You can get through all 16 in like 2.5 hours. It's not a long game, but it does have a lot of replay value. The levels are kind of a mixture of like original and callbacks. So like one of the first big callbacks that you get is Big Apple. Eric, I know we talked about this. What is the direct callback, like the time? Big Apple at 3 p.m. or something?
Yeah, so one of the like the most iconic levels, most iconic songs in Turtles in Time is I think it's Big Apple 2 a.m. And that's like the first level that you play, so that's like obviously the most played level of the game. It has a freaking banging song that goes with it too. So I think the homage to have it be, the play on words, Big Apple 3 p.m. during the day this time is a really, really just on the nose awesome throwback that fans can appreciate. And kind of like if you listen to the Turtles in Time song for that level versus the Shredder's Revenge song for this level, you can tell that there are like themes they lifted from the Turtles in Time and just kind of interspersed them with the song for Big Apple 3 p.m. And it's just like if you didn't get hit by like a wave of nostalgia from like that first level where you're like in the news station, that one hit me really hard just because it had so many memories of me playing those games back when I was a kid. So if you want, like, it's a fan servicey game and it gives you the fan service right off the start.
Was Big Apple, was that the first hoverboard one?
No, that was just the first like regular beat-up level. I believe the first hoverboard one in Turtles in Time was
in Shredder's Revenge.
No, that one was like 2 levels later, I think. And That was just like on a highway.
Yes, okay.
So 3 p.m. is just like you're just going through the city, kind of just fighting goons and stuff.
Oh, the very first level?
After the news station, after you come out
after
of the
news station, when you're on the street.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Yeah, and those are the 2 main type of levels, unless I'm forgetting something. I don't think I am. But you're going to have your foot levels where you're, running and walking, as well as the sort of hoverboard / surfing areas where you're on a hoverboard, you're on some kind of a riding device that's similar to a skateboard, and you're just taking the fights to the highway or to the sky. It's a lot of fun. Your moveset stays exactly the same, which is, I think, good. The less complicated a game like this is, the better. We could have talked about this before, but this game like approaches having too much to do, like in terms of button presses, because 21's a lot. 20. It's more than I think a lot of the Sega Genesis beat 'em ups would have, but it's not too overwhelming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think by slide 8, I stopped reading. I was like, all right, I want to play the game. Just fast forward through this. And I don't know if I missed it because I fast forwarded through it or if it was like a hidden thing. Did you know there's a button to refill your ninja gauge?
Yeah, the taunt.
I had no idea.
I do slightly remember that. Yeah, I never used it.
Because it's on like slide 18, Mikey. You stopped reading at that point.
And like, I'm looking up and I wasn't sure because it's like one of those like retro throwback games. I was curious to see if they had like funny cheats. I know a lot of times these games will be like, do like the Konami code and like people like they'll switch bandana colors or like they'll fight in their underwear or something silly. And one of the cheats was not a cheat, but if you hold down the taunt button, you fill up your ninja gauge. I'm like, what? How did I get to level 16 and not know this? 16 of 18 levels in this game, and I'm only just now hearing this.
I mean, I was the same way too. So what I would do is like I would look at each slide for like 10 seconds. I did memorize, be like, okay, it's like over this button, over this button, over this button, and I'd be like, okay, remember that. And then I go on to slide 2, and then I'd be like, okay, this one's over this button, and the previous slide was this one. So I'd like repeat the instructions to myself. And then by the time I got to like slide like 7 or 8, I was like, wait, what were like the first 3 again? And so then I just went through all of them, and I was like, yeah, hopefully I'll remember to do like some of these, and then just the other ones like naturally flow into the combos like as they go. So
the pacing is set up pretty nice too. You're not going to need necessarily to utilize your entire kit in the first 2 levels to get through. Maybe if you're playing on hard, but just standard difficulty, it's set up so that you can kind of experiment and learn safely without worrying about getting murdered every single time. But getting back to the levels, there are a lot of different enemies. There's a big variety of different enemies and foes that you're going to fight. Not just in terms of the foot soldiers, but there are like robots, environmental hazards. One level, there's like pizza mutant monsters, which is pretty cool. But you're mainly going to be fighting the foot soldiers, and they come in a bunch of different colors.
I loved that.
I did too.
Just like very easily, cool, this is a pink ninja and a gray ninja. I know exactly what each of them are going to do, and I know how to prepare myself, kind of like pattern recognition with that. Was there one color of foot soldier that you hated more than everyone else?
I don't hate might be a strong word. The green ones are the ones that shot arrows, right?
Yes.
It's not that I didn't like them. They weren't exciting because they would shoot at you and then they would just go away, you know?
More like a hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really all it boiled down to. The ones, I think they're yellow, that throw pipes at you.
And then they come back.
Always got me. Yeah, they always got me. You can deflect those if you hit the pipe and it shoots it right back to them. But I could never quite read when they were going to do that.
I was going to say it was the yellow ninjas for me too, just because, the boomerang pipe just got me every time. And then for whatever reason, the darker blue ninjas with the shield, I didn't like when those guys rolled up either, just because I was so in a flow state of just like hitting on my combos off on like the ninjas that didn't have protection, that when the blue shield guy showed up, it just threw off my whole flow. So more often than not, because I was lazy, I would just hit the special and just to kill the shield guy really fast. And that's why I never had any special. But yeah, I love the way that the ninjas are so like clearly color coded. And once you see them once, you know what they do. You remember that the yellow freaking guy throws the pipe at you and he's really annoying. So yeah, as soon as they show up on screen, like you already know like in your head, like what you have to do to like avoid and defeat that guy, which I think is just really awesome and a really great way, a simple but effective way to communicate information to your player.
They also communicate information simply and clearly by means of teaching you how to deal with them. So one that I'm thinking of is I don't remember the color, but they swing the mace on a chain. Mm-hmm. And the way that it teaches you is you cannot approach them because you cannot hit them without getting hit by their mace on a swinging chain first. You have to bait them into trying to attack you, And then while they're vulnerable, that's when you have to go in and just hit them 3 times and then they're done. Or if they're, I think at some points they can drive robots. It's the same deal. They have a very clear pattern of attack cooldown. I want to put a pin in that idea of visuals just for a second because the last thing under characters is the bosses. There are a lot of bosses in this game. It's not just Shredder, and it's not just Bebop and Rocksteady either. I feel like they get the most screen time when we're thinking of villains, and Krang too. But there's way more than just them. There's like Baxter Stockman, Slash, that kind of mutant looking turtle adjacent monster, Chrome Dome. There's a bunch of them from the show.
But I was very happy with everybody's cameos, and just like before you, like as soon as the level starts, you see a silhouette of who the boss is, just like a black silhouette of them. Whenever that came up, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, who could that be? Like, okay, I think that looks like Leatherhead. That looks like a crocodile. It has to be him. Like, oh, this is the robot version that like they made of the Ninja Turtles. And just like, I think it's fun that of the 16 levels, some of them are Bebop and Rocksteady, some of them were like Shredder, but of the 16, maybe like 10 of them, maybe 9 of them, they were like cool cameos that I'm like, oh, I'm happy that this person is in the game.
The depth of cameos was really awesome too. Like you said, it seemed to me like they weren't just going to like the well of like the popular Turtles characters, which it would be easy to do. The fact that they had a lot of these, I would maybe deeper cut characters, because I would say that, yeah, the ones that everybody knows are like Shredder, Krang, Bebop, Rocksteady. Like those are probably like the main 4. But yeah, to have like, Leatherhead, Chrome Dome, Rat King, I just think that's a really cool homage to the history and kind of the rogues gallery of, hey, there are more villains that the Turtles have fought besides just like the main 4. Yeah, yes, everyone knows that Shredder's iconic, Kang is iconic, or Krang is iconic. Sorry, thinking of my Marvel there, getting my streams crossed. But I think it's so cool, and I having been kind of like a in and out Turtles and not having consumed the comics and that kind of stuff. Only know like the big ones from like, from movies or that kind of stuff. I didn't get the stories for like some of the deeper cuts. So I think it's really cool and a really cool homage to everybody that's a bigger fan than me.
Yeah, each of those bosses too are going to have their own special toolkit. Like for example, Rocksteady does a lot of charging at you because he's a rhino. I think Bebop and Rocksteady actually have a pretty similar kit, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the one in the video game mall.
Oh,
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, shoot.
But she summons like virtual reality enemies to fight you, and you have to take them out while taking her out.
Oh yeah.
The one robot dude. I'm really bad with these names. The one robot dude towards the very end will like fly towards the screen, and it'll look like you are looking at your players as the robot boss, and like doing the punching. I thought that was a really cool touch. I really liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot tell you how many times I died during that level, because when it goes to the robot view and the arms come out, you can't hurt him. You can only hurt him when his body is there. Mm-hmm. And I did not realize that the only way to get him out of that first person view was to blow up the trash can of fire. I always thought that was there, like if I needed help blowing up enemies, I'm like, I'm good. I don't need that. And then I would just like do it for like 5 minutes. I'm like, why is he not coming back? I just kept dying. Like, that's my longest level. That took me, I think, 13 or 14 minutes to beat, because I kept dying and having to restart because I didn't. And then as soon as you hit it once, he just pops back up. Like, oh, that's all I have to do. But that was like a very fun, like a very unique boss fight for a beat 'em up type game like this.
I'm blanking. So like that one is like you're looking from like the point of view of the robot, like at the screen, right?
There's like a visor, and you just see his fists come out, and he punches you. Yeah,
I want to say it's kind of an homage too, again, to Turtles in Time, because in Turtles in Time there's a famous boss fight in the level of Technodrome where it's like Shredder is fighting you, and he's like, you're looking from his point of view while the cursor moves around on the screen, like shoots you from like a giant robot, and to defeat him you have to literally throw Foot Clan guys at the screen at Shredder. So I think that's another clever homage there.
I think that boss fight was in Technodrome, right?
Yes, yeah. It was the first Technodrome level.
Then
yeah.
Perfect. Not too subtle there.
But no, it's terrific. The enemy variety is great. The character variety is great. It's just a ton of fun right? And going back to something, I can't remember if it was Eric or Mikey that brought it up, because you're both saying such smart things that I can't tell who's saying the smart things that I'm remembering. But one of you brought up the notion of enemy visibility, and that is a big thing with these visuals. Like, we already talked about how good the visuals look, right? And they do. They look terrific. But you can always tell where enemies are on this screen. You can always tell where you are. There's no blending into the environment. There's no like hyper realism, so everything is like muted and gray, like the Marvel effect or the Halo remaster effect. It's not that. Everything is very clear. And for this type of game in particular, I think that's a huge boon to the success of the enjoyment of the game, and just in general. I think it's great. I'm so tired of everything turning realistic. I'm so tired of Final Fantasy remakes and everything looking like real life. I'm tired of it. I want more of this. I want more style and attitude and presentation, and this is that.
I have to agree, because I grew up in the era, like really, I reached adolescence around like the late 2000s, where it was, the Call of Duty and the Gears of War and everything was like this brownish gray tint that was laid over it, and everything just kind of blended into the background. And well, listen, I think it's really great and really incredible that we have these cutting edge video games that have incredible realistic graphics. But at the end of the day, like, I'm playing video games for an escape. So like, the more real things are, like, I want something that's just a video game that looks bright and colorful and doesn't have to like mirror one-to-one reality. Like, that's something that makes a game fun and I think stand out. And yeah, I will always appreciate great graphics. Like, it's a modern work of artistic achievement, sure, but like, some variety, some splashed up with some color, man. Like, give me that.
And they definitely do a good job with the colors. Even the Technodrome levels, where you're essentially just walking through like a white sign slab.
Right.
There's enough going on either in the background or with the enemies coming out on screen. Just like, you're never just stuck like, oh, it looks like I'm like in an asylum with just white walls everywhere. They always do a good job. Even when the screen is like overloaded with enemies, you can like clearly see everyone and like a wave of color coming to you, which is like you said, it's refreshing. It's fun.
And the colors are different enough to the point where I never felt like I lost track of my character, even when there was a lot of stuff going on screen. Like, most of the times it's pretty manageable. I would never say there's any more than like 6 or 8 Foot Clan ninjas on the screen at a time, probably. But some levels get a little bit chaotic, like some of the surfing levels where there's a ton of robots flying around, or the level I think of specifically is like the zoo level where there's like stampeding animals and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All of the colors are so different from one another that I was easily able to like keep track of my character at all times. So it didn't feel like when I was taking hits, it just felt because like I was like overwhelmed and hidden behind just a wall of color. If I was getting hit, it was my fault because my positioning was bad, because I can clearly tell where I am on the screen.
Yeah, and that goes for whenever you're side scrolling or whenever the level is kind of halted when when you have to clear the screen with enemies. There's never an issue of telling where you are. There's never an issue of depth perception either. I haven't played Turtles in Time Reshelled, but just watching gameplay footage of it, it's like, it's not geez, how do I describe it? It's not like you're looking at something in profile, right? Or if they were to move left and right, you can see it, but if they move back and forth, you kind of don't. But it's not quite as tilted as Shredder's Revenge. It's a little more in profile, if that makes sense. So depth perception seemed to be a bit trickier, and that's not the case here. Like, not even a little bit. And I don't know if there's any sort of like aim assist whenever you're kind of close to something but not quite enough to hit it. I'm not really sure, because it was never a problem.
Yeah.
Because I'm so good at the game. But it's very easy to navigate, to know where you are, and to hit your spot that you're trying to hit anyway. Super easy. And another thing about the visuals too that's a really nice touch is that as you're going through, you're going to see the foot soldiers just doing stuff.
Oh, that was so fun.
It's the best part. It's so good.
Like, they'll be typing like in the news station. I think that's like one of the first levels. They'll just be typing.
They're just at desks doing work.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even have a monitor. They just have a keyboard and they're just typing.
Even the Foot Clan needs a second source of income in this rough economy.
Like in the mall one, they're working food stands, they're getting food,
Yeah,
they're like sweeping.
They're just walking out with like ice cream bars. Yeah.
It made them more relatable. I was like, oh my God, they're literally do all the things that I did or work the jobs I did growing up.
Yeah, who's the real villains here?
Right.
It's the mutant turtles, of course.
We're going through and terrorizing these teenagers, just trying to make. They want to move out of their parents' basement. They're working at Hot Topic, and we're like, no, we have a challenge. Throw you into that coat rack 5 times, and we get a bonus.
Oh my God, this is Pixel Project Radio is now a Shredder sympathizing podcast. He was right all along.
Pixel Project Radio is pro dropping babies, pro Shredder, anti working class, from what I hear.
Oh, the pro dropping babies bit. That's a deep cut.
Yeah. I believe that was the first message I put in the Discord, so it stayed with me. I just joined the Discord. I'm listening to that episode. Wait, you guys are pro dropping babies? I love it.
Yeah, let's cool it on the pro dropping babies topic.
We don't want the moderators to find us.
Let's everybody just settle down.
So back to beating up people that are just trying to do their jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, visuals terrific. Absolutely terrific. Music and sound design is another thing that I think is really, really good here. We talked about the music a little bit at first, but I don't know. Was there any track that stood out to you as being good or one that you liked?
The first one that stood out to me was the first hovercraft level, because I think that was the first one. Instead of just being like ba ba da ba, it was a rap song. There was like lyrics to it,
Right?
And I'm listening to it. I'm like, wow. This is like a legitimate rap song, and like this is good. Like I would listen to this, and then that's when I listened to the playlist on Spotify, and then I was like, wow, Wu-Tang's on this, and then I looked it up. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of people involved with this. That's fun.
Yeah, I think that one caught me off guard too, because I was like, I was, as the kids say, vibing to the music throughout the first couple levels. But yeah, once that first surfing level come out on, there's like a dude rapping and like there's lyrics, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah. I'm like, okay, like this is they're taking it up a notch. For me, again, my nostalgia clouds my vision. That Big Apple 3 PM song just hits in all the right ways and sprinkles just enough of that old first level from Turtles in Time that it hits differently. And then yeah, like I went back and listened to the Wu-Tang song and just all these other ones, and it's from pretty much start to finish, like it does such a great homage to the Turtles games of old, while having like a new modern kind of twist on it that I feel like the rap and lyrics like lend a little bit of edge to, which is kind of like what the Turtles have always been about. It's like they're kind of, like that edgy era that they came from. So I think it just worked perfectly.
And keeping in this, I'm gonna tie this back to the last episode you put out, the one where you're talking about not necessarily video games, just like characters in general. How you mentioned that Baltimore is like a character in The Wire. It's like so central to it.
Yeah.
Like New York is very obviously the fifth turtle. Like I don't think the Ninja Turtles would work if you put them anywhere else. They're very much just like New York, like born and raised, and like I think having the rap in there fits. Like rap is from New York. It's like from block parties in the Bronx. It's very much like part of the culture. It's like, so they grew up with that. That's probably what the Turtles listened to. It just like helped build the ambiance of the vibe of like, oh yeah, we're going to the Bronx Zoo, or we're going to Coney Island and we're going to listen to Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, this is New York, baby.
Rap has always been part of the identity of the Turtles. Which it was one of the first early Ninja Turtles. I don't remember if it was the first, second one, but they were in the club. Remember Vanilla Ice? Vanilla Ice was rapping, "Go Ninja, go Ninja, go!" And then that's just, that's always been part of the identity of the Turtles. That is all the rapping you'll get me to do on any episode of a podcast ever. So.
God, of all of them, they had to pick Vanilla Ice.
He was big at the time. It came out like the same. It came out the same year as like Ice Ice Baby, and they're like, "Yo, we need him."
And now he has a home renovation show on HGTV.
Does he?
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't predict that trajectory.
Nope, that's an interesting character arc.
Like if you were to go back in time to the 90s and tell somebody about Vanilla Ice having a home renovation show today, they would be like, well, first of all, they would be like, who are you? Get away from me. but, but then they would be like, no, you're crazy. He's Vanilla Ice.
It'd be similar to going back in time and telling people that Marky Mark would be a good actor. Oh, wait. Ooh, sorry. Didn't mean to take shots at Mark Wahlberg there.
Yeah, notable listener to the podcast, Mark Wahlberg, we apologize.
Please come on the show.
Okay,
we need I will do whatever game you want if you want to come on the show, Mark Wahlberg.
But we need listener support right now. I want everybody to at Vanilla Ice and Marky Mark, and we need to get them on the show to cover another Ninja Turtles game.
Yeah, let's do it.
Speaking some of the old shows and movies and such, all of the original voice actors for the Turtles returned. You've got Cam Clark as Leo, Townsend Coleman as Michelangelo, Barry Gordon as Donatello, and Rob Paulson as Raphael. Those are all the originals from the 80s cartoon, as far as I'm aware. Mm-hmm. And you can tell as soon as you boot it up and you hear some of their shouts, like you can tell it's them. Splinter here is voiced by Sean Guernsey, who also voices like a bunch of different villains in this game. April is voiced by Catherine Slingsby, and Casey Jones is voiced by Darren Wirtz. I don't know who any of those are, those final three. I'm not sure if they were, I don't think they were from the original cast. I could be wrong, though.
I was about to say, I only know the turtle actors. I couldn't tell you anyone else. Oh, you know what? Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince was Shredder, and it wasn't him this game. So I know for a fact he's not in it.
Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince was the original Shredder?
Yeah. Oh, did you not know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
James Avery.
Shocking. Wow.
I thought Mikey was about to say that James Avery was in this, and I was like, buddy, I don't know if you know.
They did the AI voice thing where they just they made the AI listen to all the episodes of Fresh Prince and they just modulated his voice. That's so topical.
Yeah, that's why there are so many artifacts in here. When Shredder's running away, you hear him say like "Will," because of the AI learning.
That's so weird because I literally just watched like an Instagram reel of like the episode of Fresh Prince where like Phil or that guy hustles Will out of pool, and then Phil like comes and just like wins all his money back. Like break out Lucille.
A plus episode.
Yeah,
A plus episode.
Fantastic.
I swear, dude. I was like all throughout high school, I was like a fat kid, and nothing made me feel cooler than watching Uncle Phil, because he's just like,
hands down.
He was a big boy, but he was always so damn cool. Like whenever it came down to it.
Yeah, 100%.
God.
My only familiarity with the voice actors, like I know the original group. I don't know what most of them do outside of Ninja Turtles, but I know Rob Paulson was he's done so many cartoon voices. Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain being like the ones that come to my mind immediately. Carl Weezer, one of my favorite voice performances ever of all time. So good.
From Those Modern Life.
Oh yeah. So he's been like in the animation business for goddamn probably 40 years now, and yeah, it's great to hear him. All of them being back was just such a, again, this game was just designed to deliver nostalgia straight into like my brain receptors and make me feel good. So yeah, that's great.
There is one bit in terms of like the music and the sound that I am not so hot on, and that is the theme. I don't like the reworking of the theme in this game. I really do not like it. Let's listen real quick to the original TMNT theme, and then a bit of the reworking, the reorchestration back to back, just to hear some differences. So the original theme is fascinating. It was written in like a period of under 48 hours by Chuck Lorre. Shout out to Kimmy Schmidt, who like I almost called her Liz Lemon. Because I mean, she basically is. I don't know if Tina Fey like was the one to write that line, but there's like a little nod in Kimmy Schmidt that like gives credit to Chuck Lorre for writing the TMNT theme.
Right.
And it became a thing because people picked up on it and they were like, wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh yeah, actually he did. But like he got the call really late because somebody else was going to write it. And then he wrote it in like 48 hours, like from 12 to 8 a.m. That was when they recorded it because it was like the cheapest studio time. And it's the original theme is just so cool. Like it's just straight ahead 80s like rock, but not like AC/DC parents rock, like just straight ahead like rock with a little bit of edge to it. It's terrific. And what they try to do with the reworking of it in this, it's too much. There's just too much. They're trying to do too much with it. There's too many sounds. There's too many like the musicians doing musician things, which is not always the best thing to do. It's been a minute since I've listened to this. Unless you're listening in real time, because we obviously just heard it, and that wasn't the magic of post-processing and editing. But it's been a second since I listened to it. But I vaguely remember them trying to do like a halftime thing for a second in one of the like verses, and it's like, no, like don't do that. It's cool from a musician's perspective. It feels good to play that, but it doesn't serve the song. Like I don't know. What do you think? I've been going on about this for 2 minutes now. What do you two think?
I am not a musician, so anytime I hear anything Turtles related, I'm like, fuck yeah, give it to me. Listening to you explain that, you probably haven't heard it, but the theme song for the 2012 cartoon, it's a rap reimagining done the same way of just like, it's the same basic structure with like the same melody, but they just like modify it and do a whole bunch of stuff. You probably would hate that too, but I dug it because it's just like cool. It's like, give me a Turtles remix. I don't care. It's 30 seconds. I can listen to it 9 times and it's still under 5 minutes. It's like, give it to me.
I want to clarify that a little bit. The reason that I don't like the reorchestration here is because it is in the original style. They're just trying to do more stuff with it. A reimagining in a different genre is something completely different.
No. So it's the same thing with like all of like the extra instruments doing stuff and like the halftime, just with rap lyrics instead. It's just like it's literally almost verbatim the same thing. They just switch a couple of the turtles in order to make sure like machines and like leads like rhyme or something like that. But yeah, I'll send it to you when this episode's over. But you probably won't like that one either.
I'll do you one better. Let's take a listen to it right now.
Shell shock pizza kings can't stop these radical dudes. The secret of the ooze made the chosen few emerge from the shadows to make their move. The good guys win and the bad guys lose.
No, so that's different. That's completely different.
Okay.
That's not even close. Which is fine. Like I don't have an issue with a reimagining. It's just for the TMNT, for Shredder's Revenge, it's clear that they said we want to have the theme song. We want the theme song. Hey band, record the theme song. And then the band recorded the theme song but put their own little winks onto it. Like it's not a reimagining. It's the same thing, just like in a different accent, if that makes sense. Like if you're not a music person, that might be a good way to describe it. And it's just not the same. I don't like it. It's a cheap copy of the original. This 2012 theme song is different enough. It is not a copy. It's kind of cool. Like I don't mind this at all.
I like it.
Yeah, it's where like, and I did, Rick, we talked about this a little bit a couple days ago. When you did that, I did go back and listen to them. And yeah, I don't know what it was about theme songs of that era, but to me, they just went so hard compared to like what shows do now. Like to me, the theme songs from those shows, for shows that I haven't seen for like 20, 25 years, maybe, like stick in my head Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles being one of them, if not the most iconic. I haven't seen the original Power Rangers series in probably 25 years, and I still very clearly remember Power Rangers. Everybody from our generation probably knows every single word of the Pokemon theme song. I would be willing to bet that hands down. I haven't seen Gargoyles in 30 years, and I remember very clearly Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck, Bonkers, like Animaniacs. I can go on and on. And it's just you're exactly right in the way you describe it. It's like they just took it and they re-recorded it, but they just piled things on top of it, and it's just like it doesn't feel good. I don't think it feels like, you said exactly the way you described it. Like it feels busy. And I think that's just, if they just would have taken it and like re-recorded it, what it was from like the original band, if that's what they wanted, just the original song, just record exactly the way it was, I think that would have worked just fine. But the fact that they wanted the original theme song and then they recorded the original theme song, but they just threw so much stuff on top of it. Eventually, if you're like seasoning food, you season it too much, it's like just a bit too much, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's exactly like that. It's like they took the same dish but changed up the spices, and it's like, well, these spices might taste better to you, but I don't think they work personally. Also, shout out to the top rated comment on we just listened to the 2012 theme of TMNT. Shout out to the top rated comment. Everybody gangsta till the turtle's eyes turn white.
YouTube comments are the blessing that we don't deserve sometimes.
There really was like that 90s, like 80s through early 2000s, just so many good theme songs.
There were. It was
like
incredible.
And not even just like Western animation, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, classic.
Right. Dragon Ball Z.
Example. I almost said Will Smith.
Will Smith. Just Will Smith, his theme song.
I mean, even the Cosby Show had like a good theme song. Hasn't aged very well, but good theme song. That's a little earlier than that. But
all I have to do is say DuckTales, and then it's stuck in your head.
Yeah, it's weird. You couldn't ask me to recall a theme song from a popular TV show of the past like 3 years. And I don't think it's necessarily like there wasn't anything in the water. I just think like it's a combination now of like there's so much more TV to watch now, and everybody's clicking skip intro on like streaming services. I do all the time. I don't I never skip Evangelion. I never Sailor Moon. Never skip Sailor Moon. That's another one. I skip The Sopranos, even though like it's a good song, and Breaking Bad. I mean, that's a good 10 seconds of sound. It's not really a theme song, but I skip past those. Yeah, I don't know. There are also a lot of things like that, like Breaking Bad, of it's not so much a theme song so much as it is just an opening sonic representation. Yeah.
The one that comes to mind, I think, is the only one I can think of like the last 10 years is maybe like The Office. But I don't know if that's because it's iconic or just because I literally hear it because it's on every single TV everywhere I go still to this day.
Well, that's also what The Office came out in 2007.
Yeah.
Something like that.
2005, I think. Even 2005. Yeah, it's old.
I'm getting old.
That is early 2000s.
Oof, yeah. I think that I think anime has done a great job of carrying forward the art of the intro because pretty much if I'm watching an anime, I don't skip the intro because most of the time they're pretty good and it's just a banging song for about a minute with some awesome animation, and then but everything else is a streaming service that everyone's just like skip recap, skip intro. So the companies aren't incentivized to put any time or money into it. And back then, everything about the show they were producing and packaging for you was designed to also sell toys, sell secondary merchandise. So they wanted everything to be as catchy as possible.
I think that's a big part of it too, is like you slap the Street Sharks theme or the Power Rangers theme or the Turtles theme onto a toy commercial, and that's going to sell units.
Because people know it. Yeah, it's 100%. Predatory marketing tactics in the 90s.
Hey man, you're the expert on that kind of thing.
I have no shame. Purposely took classes to manipulate people emotionally into buying things, but hey, it's the name of the game, baby.
The last thing that I actually have written down to talk about is just reception. It received generally favorable reviews. Shredder's Revenge did. A lot of 7, and we've said this on this show 100 times. But these numbers ultimately don't mean a whole lot in this day and age. You know, everything is a 7 to 9 out of 10. Everything. If it's lower than a 7 out of 10, then it's bad,
Mhm.
you know, which doesn't make any sense. It takes the same model as American school systems, which is stupid. But there is a zeitgeist, so you know what we mean when we say it's a 7.5 out of 10 game. It's an 8 out of 10 game. It's a, what is this one? I wasn't expecting French. Jeuxvideo.com gave it a 16 out of 20.
Interesting.
It's a weird rating
Huh.
system.
Which just reduces to a 4 out of 5, but okay.
The Turtles.
Yeah, no, I think in today's day and age, I'm pretty much looking at it. I mean, the ratings and reviews are an easy way for us to see, just have a conversation about things. Pretty much, yeah. If anything's like a 7 through a 9, I'm like, okay, it's probably a good video game. It's fine. Yeah, the only things that give me pauses are when things are below a 7 or above a 9. Then it's like, all right, what's actually going on here? That's really the true indication. But yeah, if it's a 7 through 9, that most of the time like doesn't mean anything. The difference between each incremental number there is negligible.
My favorite thing, and we kind of digressed when it came to music a little bit, and we're going to digress again. And geez, and Fresh Prince, we're digressing a lot. But my favorite thing is whenever you're listening to a review, particularly from somebody like IGN, where they pressure their writers to get reviews out there, even if they don't know the game very well.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have all these cons, like the platforming is sloppy, the level design is repetitive and frustrating to newcomers of the series, the music is blah blah blah, and like just listing all these cons, and then at the end they're like, it's an 8 out of 10. It's got a little something for everyone. Man, like I know it's not the writer's fault because they're being pressured, and they'll let go probably if they're honest, but it sucks, man.
Yeah, a perfect modern example of that is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The reviews for that across the board seem to be like, yeah, between 7 and 9, and one mad lad even gave it a 10. And I was, having played that game, I'm like, this is not a 10, but okay, I'm happy that you enjoyed it.
I don't know what's real anymore whenever I'm looking at coverage of the Pokemon games. It's like I feel like it's some kind of like a cyber psyop. Like
I mean, it very well might be, but yeah, since we're on that side tangent, there is a lot of pressure that you want to give games favorable coverage, so you keep getting games so that people will keep reading your articles and you can keep selling advertising. It's a cyclical circle. It's one of the reasons that Jeff Gerstmann got fired from GameSpot and went and started Giant Bomb, is because he gave a game that they wanted GameSpot to review a low score because he thought it was bad. And the publisher and GameSpot had a problem with that because they were a big publisher. So that's why he left and started Giant Bomb, so that he could have more honest conversation about video games. Whereas like GameSpot just wanted to put out whatever the review was so they could keep getting, game reviews and keep getting ad revenue. That's the whole point. Can't have an honest conversation when money's involved. But I digress.
Yeah, you see that a lot too, like with tech YouTube reviewers, like thinking. I'm not going to outwardly accuse anybody of being dishonest because they're not, but you can certainly tell the folks that are getting money to do stuff. One person that comes to mind is he's a reviewer called Flossie Carter, and with the exception of like one notable video that he eventually, I think, kind of took down, like he's pretty quick to just shit on anything about a phone. Like every phone he reviews, he's like, the price is too goddamn high, and it's like, well, yes, true, but yeah, that's one of the pros to media being so accessible to everybody to make these days, is that you can get. I would much rather hear 10 reviews from people like our podcast, like just regular dudes, about their thoughts on a game or an album or a TV show than read 5 IGN reviews or Kotaku reviews or whatever. I don't know. I'm not calling out Kotaku specifically. I am calling out IGN, but I don't know enough about Kotaku to say one way or the other.
I completely agree. I also agree with the fact, I think we need more podcasts of just regular guys talking about video games. I don't think there's enough of them out there, and it's like a niche market. I think we need to expand on that.
Regular guy talking about video games is my favorite genre of podcast.
It's true. There's not enough. So if you're listening, please saturate the market more.
If you are a regular guy, you know what to do.
There's nothing I love more than opening a brand new indie podcast and it's just two dudes talking about games they like with no hook or no style or anything. Please bring more into my life.
And you know what? If you think there's too many of that, maybe try spicing it up. Maybe throw in like a beer or two. I feel like there's not enough of that either. That might like, oh man.
But now I feel like you're just calling out drunken gamers. or Red Fox specifically.
Just all of the yeah. Oh, I wasn't, but you know what? Now I am.
Hey man, I got no beef with drunken gamers or Red Fox. This is all Mikey. We don't endorse this.
Send them over my way. Don't at Rick. I'll give you my Twitter at the end of the podcast. At me. Send me hate mail. Whatever. I don't care.
That about wraps it up, I think. I mean, this isn't an extraordinarily long game. It's 2 hours of just beat 'em up goodness. It's replayable because it is exactly that. I don't know that I have a lot more to add to this. I know. What about you two? Is there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to touch on?
No, I don't really have anything else. Honestly, by the time you listen to this episode, you could probably be halfway to 3/4 of the way through the game, if I'm being 100% honest. But yeah, it is what it is. It doesn't try to trick you or hide you. What's presented is what you're going to get, and it's fantastic for that.
Yeah, I have two things I wanted to bring up. One of them is a bit of a spoiler for the last level, so just skip forward 30 seconds if you haven't got there yet. But I love that it opens with Bebop going, the Statue of Liberty. And then it ends you fighting the Statue of Tyranny because they took it over. I just think that was so stupid and fun. But I'm sure you could do a whole episode on just like the parallels of like liberty and tyranny and like modern America. I thought that was very on brand.
I was just thinking that's very topical for
yes,
if I'm being honest.
And like, I'm sure it was just them being funny, but I'm like, I'm sure we could go deeper into that. And then the other thing that I noticed is when you fight Shredder at the end, a lot of the moves that he does look similar to what the Turtles do. And there's a reason for that. It's because the Turtles are trained by Splinter. And in the TV show, Splinter and Shredder, like in Japan, trained like in the same clan together. So they knew the same ninja moves before he turned into a rat and they had the big fight. But like, it's literally all the same style of ninjutsu, which is why his moves are so similar to like the Turtles moves, that they literally like all trained from the same master. I thought that was like a clever touch.
That is very cool. I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all. I'm not versed in the turtle lore.
Depending who you... So this is based off of the 1987 cartoon, so the lore is slightly... like every iteration has their own thing. In the comic book, I believe Splinter was just the pet rat of Hamato Yoshi, and he just trained with Yoshi cause, like in a cage, and was like... It was a parody, so it was like very comical. But in the cartoon version, Hamato Yoshi was in the sewers for whatever the reason, got hit with the ooze, and then he mutated into a rat. So he just retained the ninjutsu he already learned.
Before we close out, just a quick shout out to the documentary on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on there, but it was called The Toys That Made Us. It's got a whole episode devoted to TMNT with interviews of the original dudes. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Peter Laird, that's it. They had a notable falling out at a certain point. They reunite for that documentary. It's awkward, but it's still a really good documentary. It's very cool to get a look at like how they conceived of the Turtles, the original gritty black and white comics that were literally made in their house. Like it was not a big operation. Very cool. And finally, if I had to rate this game out of 5 cheese pizzas, I'm giving it, personally, 4.5 extra cheese pizzas with an added cowabunga on there. And that's my take. How about you boys?
I'm going to give it 3 cheese and 1 pepperoni slice for a grand total of 4 out of 5. But I wanted to throw a little bit of spice in there because I don't think giving it 4 cheese slices would have done it justice, and I don't think it quite warrants a 4.5. But I think 3 cheese and 1 pepperoni adequately sums up my feelings on it.
And if you want to at Mikey at his implication that pepperoni is somehow inferior to cheese, at BDE Podcast.
For me, I think I have to give it 4 big old hearty meat lovers style slices out of 5. I'm not particularly picky. I like meat on my pizza. Give me some sausage, give me some Italian sausage, pepperoni, whatever. The only thing that is not acceptable on it is pineapple, but that's a fight that we will have for another day.
I'm sure the Turtles have similar conflicting views on pizza toppings. I could see Mikey enjoying a pineapple pizza. All right, you heard it here. I think we could safely say that we all recommend this, right? At this time.
Yeah, very much so.
100%.
Especially since it's only like $20. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. And I think it might be on Game Pass too. So if you haven't played it, get to playing it. You could have played through more than half of it instead of listening to this. So that's all for this time. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can always find us on Instagram and Twitter at pixelprojectradio. You could just search us by name. We'll come up. We've got a Discord that you'll find in the show notes, and we've got a Patreon if you would like to support us for like $2 a month even. That'll get you a lot of special privileges, such as extra episodes and voice in what we decide to create next. It just so happens that my 2 guests here also have 2 great shows, so I want to give them a platform to promote that. So Mikey, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing on the internet right now?
Yeah, so you can find me either at Mikey Tabletop or BDE Pod. I guess I host the podcast called Big Drink Energy. We haven't done much of anything in the last couple months, but follow along because we're currently in the middle of hosting the Indie Podcast Smash League, where if you're listening to this, I'm sure if you go back and listen to any previous episodes and it says featuring so-and-so, they are in the Indie Podcast Smash League. It's like 16 of us. I think it's 13 different podcasts. We're playing Smash Ultimate. We stream it every week. Follow along for updates. That's more fun than listening to any of my stupid podcasts. So follow me for that.
I haven't got kicked out yet. I'm still in. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, so like Rick said, I host the Unlockables podcast, which is the story of video games, people who play them, and the memories made along the way. Both Rick and Mikey have been on the show, and I've interviewed them about their shows. It's an awesome time. That's a great spot to start if you're new to what I do. And I believe when this episode comes out, we'll be 4 days away, if I'm guessing correctly, from the launch of the 12 Games of Christmas, a Christmas celebration that I'm doing, where I talk about 12 of my favorite games 12 days in a row with a bunch of different creators there. So Rick may or may not have helped me out with one of those. So be on the lookout for that. It's sure to be a good time. I'm sure by the end of 12 episodes in a row, people are going to be sick of me. But as far as if you want to reach me on anything else, you can just go to my Linktree, which I guess isn't cool to have anymore. I don't know. I've been told by younger people that Linktrees aren't.
What?
Linktrees are like the boomer thing now. I don't know.
I just started using it.
Same here. It moves so fast that it's like I can't keep up. But you can find me on linktr.ee/Unlockables podcast. Links to the show, to Twitter, Instagram, and we have Discord now that I started out of panic because I thought Twitter was going to go away. So now we have a lovely Discord community that everybody's a part of. So come and join us. We have a great time. And yeah.
Now that you mention it, there is like a TikTok alternative to Linktree. I know what you're talking about.
Well,
I don't know what it's called, though, and I don't care to learn.
Yeah, no, I've got a Linktree. I put the effort into that. I'm not changing. So,
yeah. And on that curmudgeonly note, I think we can safely cut this episode down. Thank you for tuning in. As always, my name is Rick Firestone, the bodacious hero in the half shell. Signing off for now. Catch you later.
With heroes in a half shell going to war. Got the city under siege and they holding the fort. Got extra large pizza boxes all on the floor. Get sized up by a negative force. Your time's up on whatever you thought. Individual starving the floor. So the samurai swords on point for the cause. Dangerous metals highlight the reign of terror. The twilight meets the rain.